to Iran. Plus,
that was the only thing that kind of kept Iran in check. Now, I'm not agreeing with it, but that's just his objective point of view of saying what happened.
He kept Iran in check. Plus, he kept countries stabilized. Now there is no stability in Iraq,
and it's actually going to be worse.
It's going to be worse
than what it was before, because now you will have Iran's complete influence.
Right. It's getting worse, and it will go worse, and it's like, I think it's like that a stack of Legos. If you touch it, you destroy everything.
Oh, like you mean the dominoes?
Right.
You pull one out.
Dominoes, you know.
So, but here's the question: How does Ron Paul handle that situation?
With what?
With the destabilization of basically that whole part of the world. I mean, because now we only have 5,000 troops there. That's it.
The thing, I would say that, as far as I understand, I mean, I'm not Ron Paul.
Right. But I mean, just based on what he's saying.
As far as I understand, he's like, it's their problem, let them deal with it. I mean, we don't have to police the whole world. It's ethically not right, and if it's financially, we cannot afford it anymore. Just leave them alone. Let them deal with it, you know. And
that's pretty hard. That's pretty cold.
It's really
because you know what's going to happen. The Sunnis are going to destroy the Shiites.
Not necessarily.
How they've never lived in harmony throughout thousands of years. Why would it start all of a sudden?
Well, they have. I mean, of course, you know, there are religious differences, but
well, I know, but I'm just saying. So, with that as the core of their beings, I don't see a peace accord coming anytime soon.
No, there's no peace accord coming, and there will probably never be a peace accord like for example between Catholics and Protestants.
Right,
you know,
right.
There will never be. But a lot of time, you know, these things are very exaggerated by media. Of course, you know, they have differences, but like for example in Pakistan, you know, or in India.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have been living together.
Right, the Hindus and
Muslims and Sunnis and
Shiites
for thousands of years.
But also you have to say the Sunnis and the Shiites are minorities in those countries also.
Right.
Whereas in Iraq and Iran, there's a majority in one or the other. You know what I mean? So when you're kind of the minority group, it's not as big, but when you become the majority, it's a problem.
Yeah, it does become a problem.
And that's what's going to happen there, because you have the Sunnis of Iran who are running in, influencing what happens in the Iraqi government. So,
yep.
So it'd be interesting.
Yeah. So it's in the, yeah, you know, this is true that politically Sunnis have been always more powerful than Shias, and they have been running even the countries that are predominantly Shia countries.
Right.
You know, for example, Iraq. And,
right.
And
but now that's going to change, because actually the person who's the prime minister of Iraq now is a Sunni. He's not a Shiite. He's a Sunni. So that would say that everything from Iran through Iraq goes right to Syria, which supports Assad. And I'm not going to say that Assad is removed, because I really don't know what's really going on in Syria. I don't think anybody really knows. I don't know if it's really a participant in the Arab Spring or not. Who knows? But I do know that there has been some influence from Iran into that country, trying to overthrow, you know, what's going on in Syria. And then we have the United States once again putting their nose in somebody's business, calling for Assad to resign. Why? Why?
Well, Assad has been a problem.
For who?
For Arab world, for Israel, for, you know.
Yeah, but you can't tell me that that is not going to be. I'm just trying to put it all together, because is it going to be a Sunni that's going to be in control of Syria now?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think that's possible. I don't think that's possible.
No, that's my point. And Assad pretty much, I mean, that whole country, Syria, was not really as conservative as some of the other countries. I mean, people still had their rights. It seemed as if they did. Now, I really don't know, because, once again, Syria is pretty secretive. They don't allow just anyone in and out of their borders. So, just from my perceptions and my readings and information I've gotten. I'm just trying to figure out why we are calling for Assad to step down.
Well, both Libya and Syria were not as conservative.
I know they were actually moderate.
Even Iraq, Saddam Hussein was
they were moderate governments.
Saddam Hussein was not radical. He was
right.
not religious. I mean, he was very secular.
Right.
The only problem he had was what he just would not give up power. He was a dictator.
But also he had a beef against the Kurds, and he also had a beef against the Sunnis.
Same was Gaddafi, same as Assad. You know, they are brutal dictators. They do not allow any opposition. They do not allow any freedom, any open media or anything. But, you know, they are not radical. They are not conservative. Right. They are not religious. I mean, this is true. I totally agree with that.
Well, but here's the interesting thing I heard. I have a friend who is a citizen of Iraq, or was, who now is in the United States, and he said to me, he said, you know what, William? Unfortunately, in my part of the world, the only way you can have any kind of order is having a dictator. And I just sit there and I looked at him. But at the same time, I heard exactly what he said. He also said to me, in America, people have too much freedom. They have so much freedom that they don't even know what to do with themselves. And he said that's one of the biggest problems, even when people from other countries come here, they don't know how to handle that freedom, because it's like, all of a sudden, I don't have the normal restrictions and boundaries. And unfortunately, Americans who were born here, raised here, take that for granted.
Right. See, I tell you this, this was actually thought about every country before, that the only way to keep harmony in a country is to have a powerful dictator. Mm-hmm. That was like, you have to have a king,
right?
You know, and then certain people, in the United States, in France, in England, in other countries, they challenge this idea. They said no, the individual power, the democracy, the one person, one vote can actually do better.
Right.
And there was a lot of resistance. There were a lot of fights and wars and civil wars and this and that, and then revolutions, and then finally democracy got established inside a certain country, including United States. Mm-hmm. And the thing was that they all, in all Western Europe and and in America, okay, including Canada and mm-hmm. It came from inside.
Yes.
It came from inside.
What do you call it? You call it the grassroots.
Grassroots. The people of the country wanted that. They fought for it, and that's why change was unavoidable, and it was strong and persistent. The problem with the Eastern countries is that they still do not have that strong inner urge for democracy.
Right.
Democracy.
Right.
And I am pretty sure that it is building, and it is going to get stronger and stronger, and the time will come that people from inside will come up and fight for democracy and stuff like that.
But do you think the Arab Spring has been part of that? Do you think that's part of that democracy?
That may be a part of it, but the problem is that it is getting impression like, in general public is getting impression like that it is being imposed by the foreign powers. So the problem is that
or if not the foreign powers, from a political religious power within the country that wants to retake and take them back 100 years because of them becoming too westernized. Right. So it's a fine balance, because it on the surface it kind of looks like a grassroots, but when you start uncovering the layers, it's not grassroots. Right. It's an organized religious group, be it conservative, moderate, or liberal, that's taking the power and pretending as if it's a grassroots. I mean, to me, that's what the Arab Spring looks like to me. It doesn't look like a true grassroots calling for democracy. And I'm not saying, and here's another thing, what's democracy to us is not the same as democracy for some of these countries. And that's a bigger issue. That's even another issue to discuss, because democracy is basically what the individuals of that country feel is democracy for them, not what America thinks democracy should be. And therein lies another problem. That's one of the multiple layers that we're going through again.
There are issues with this. I agree with that. But I agree with Ron Paul in this aspect that you cannot impose or export the democracy to
I agree. I totally agree with you there.
The real change in these countries will never going to happen unless it comes from inside, and the people from those countries work for that and fight for that.
And share their blood for their own blood, right. Not anyone else coming in to fight for them. Right, I agree.
With we interfering, we risk our reputation. We spend a lot of money and everything. Blood and everything, and we still
got nothing. We have nothing. We have nothing. I think we've created a bigger power vacuum by quote unquote helping or meddling or leave them alone.
See what's happening in Iraq? It's basically the power gap, as you said.
Yeah, it's a huge power vacuum.
A huge power vacuum that is not seems to be filling in the near future. The country is much more unstable than it used to be
in every way,
and it is much more likely to be taken over by extremists and radical elements. And I mean, we so many people got killed.
We spent $1 trillion in Iraq,
almost $1 trillion,
and now we just basically walked out. Why? I mean, here's the thing. I am a person that believes this. You cannot take out, 100,000 troops and say that they're stable. I mean, there has to be some other way to do that, to say here. But to just, it's just like basically kicking your kid out of the house because they turn 18. It doesn't work.
Yeah, see, because the thing is that...
this is my reason why. You've destroyed all their generals. You've destroyed all their government. Supposedly they put a constitution together and they've had free elections. We all know that's a bunch of just so we can actually get out of there. This is not good. You've destabilized that whole region now worse than it was before removing the dictator and having your colonization for the last 10 years.
See, the thing is that getting in was a mistake. And
but we've already said that was a mistake.
Right. But there seemed to be no point for continuing this operation. I mean,
I would agree, but there has to be a better way than just walking out.
What could be the better way?
I don't know. There has to be something.
See, when Big Bush was president, they had the Kuwait War, and he didn't go in Iraq. He was bitterly criticized for not going into the Iraq.
But he couldn't because the United Nations said you can't go in there and do that.
Yeah. Plus, he said that I didn't go to Iraq because we didn't have any exit strategy.
Right.
We knew how to get in, but we didn't know how to get out.
Right.
And he was dead right about that.
I would totally agree with you there. MacArthur even said that you don't ever fight anybody in their home place because you can't win.
That's still true. I mean, the problem is that there is no ideal exit strategy.
Well, but then if that's the case, then why even go in and remove the dictator then?
I think they shouldn't have. There was no point.
In a lot of ways, I would have to agree with you because now the region is much more destabilized than it ever has been since us putting Saddam Hussein there to begin with.
And it's bad not for the people of those countries and not just for us. It's bad for Israel too.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
A destabilized Middle East is very bad and very dangerous for Israel too.
Then that goes back to my point with Ron Paul with his theory of taking hands off and not meddling. How does that affect our relationship with Israel? Because now you've got Israel that has now Syria, you've got Iraq, and you have Iran, who could basically go in there at any moment and do whatever they want. So do we just say to Israel, it's over? We no longer have a relationship with you. We're no longer your ally? Because in Ron Paul's world, and hearing him speak, that's how he approaches it.
Well, I can understand that an Arab-Israel war is going to be really, really disastrous now, just like a Pakistan or India war is going to be extremely disastrous.
Exactly.
Because almost everyone believes now, international analysts believe that Israel has not declared nuclear weapons, but Israel does have lots.
Oh, absolutely, they have nuclear weapons. That's without question.
They have lots of nuclear weapons.
Yeah, more than all of those other countries around them, including Pakistan and India.
Well, other countries don't have nuclear weapons in Middle East. Pakistan, India.
Supposedly, I think Iran probably has one and just waiting to use it. I think they have been enriching uranium now